Okay, so let's talk about continuous brew kombucha. Today I'm going to share with you why we drink kombucha, how to make it, give you an update on the beet kvass that I started last week, plus a bonus powerhouse drink that I make pretty much every day. Let's do this thing! Now, the big picture here on our homestead is that I'm doing natural beekeeping, wanting to keep chickens in a self-sustainable flock. I just started colony-raised meat rabbits. We have a small peach and apple orchard in which we have a small but growing food forest. And all of this is so that we can produce better than organic produce and pasture-raised meats to kind of follow with those Weston A. Price principles of a high-fat diet, an animal-based diet, a healthy animal-based diet using pasture-raised animals. Now, another big aspect of Weston A. Price principle, and not just Weston A. Price, but many other people, is to include a lot of fermented foods in your diet. So a staple for us in the summer months is kombucha, and kombucha is just fermented tea. So I would love to tell you all of the many scientific benefits of kombucha, but to be totally honest, I don't really know them. It kind of goes back to what I was saying in the beet kvass video from last week, that like you, I'm sure, I have found some trusted sources. For me, that includes my former GAPS practitioner, Amy from Loveland, Colorado, and my former Weston A. Price Foundation chapter leader. And both of those are extremely knowledgeable and kind and trustworthy women. And so basically whatever they say I trust. I trust my former GAPS practitioner because she helped my son heal from the inside out of his eczema, and my former Weston A. Price chapter leader Nancy is just the best. So I don't know a ton about kombucha, but what I do know is that it helps our beneficial gut bacteria. Now, in preparation for this video, I just spent a little bit of time looking on the Weston A. Price Foundation website and have some sources that you can look at in the description to learn more. There was one podcast that they have on there, and it's about 42 minutes long, where you can learn about the benefits of kombucha, and also they answer some commonly asked questions about kombucha. So I'm looking forward to listening to that at some point, because I am sure that I'm going to learn so much from it, and I know there are tons of benefits that I don't even know about. I'm also linking one woman's journey in particular in starting to drink kombucha. So guys, kombucha is so easy to make. Once you have your scoby, which I'll explain what that is, it only takes the amount of time that it takes to make tea, except that it does, after you make the kombucha, then you need to let it ferment for a couple of days, but it's really not very labor or time intensive. This recipe that I'm using, I actually got from my friend Anne back in Colorado before we moved here to Missouri. So thanks, Anne. So, of course, step one is just to gather the supplies. I use black and green tea. Most people either use black tea or green tea, and I'm sure there's benefits and different flavors for both of those, so I just use both. That's the only reason why. And the next ingredient is sugar. Yes, just plain old table sugar. Now, I personally don't consume processed sugar in my diet at all, so this is the one big exception, but the reason, of course, is that the sugar that's in the kombucha, the bacteria consume, and so if you drink kombucha 5 minutes after making it, it's gonna just be sweet tea, but that's why you let it ferment for a couple days. And so the longer you wait, the more sour it gets, because there's gonna be less sugar and more of a vinegar flavor. And so if you let it go too far, it's just basically gonna turn into vinegar. But then you can use it for other things, like cleaning your table, which is something that they talk about in the podcast that's linked below. So then you just need to get a tea kettle. So I use some metal tea balls, a tablespoon, a 1 gallon jar, and I use this one with a nifty little spout at the bottom, which makes the continuous brew super convenient, and a 1 cup measuring cup, and the scoby. So this video isn't going to go into how to create the scoby. I haven't reviewed that recently, but I have this beautiful scoby. Just look at it. It gets really big, and sometimes I even peel layers off the top and just put them in my compost. So the scoby is just going to stay in the jar pretty much all the time. And I forgot the bowl for steeping the tea, so don't forget that. Now, step 2 is just to make sweet tea. I can't help but throw in here a really funny story that happened, I don't know, a couple months ago. So we had some friends of ours, the kids of some friends of ours, over to play with our kids, and they're about the same age as our kids. And one of the boys, he said, "Hey, do you have some tea that I could have?" And I said, "Oh yeah, we have tea." And I'm thinking herbal tea that we use mainly when we're sick. And then I thought, oh, he's probably thinking of sweet tea. And so I told him, well, we do have some tea, but it's not sweet tea. It's just normal tea. And he, super seriously and not unkindly, says, I've got a good idea. What's that? How about you get rid of your terrible tea and get some sweet tea? Well, maybe you can come over when we just start making kombucha and then we'll have sweet tea. But anyway, you go ahead and just get your water boiling, you turn on the burner, and then when you realize you've turned on the wrong burner, you turn that one off and then you turn on the correct burner. So I make 1 gallon at a time. So this is 16 cups. Now, you're supposed to use 1 teaspoon of tea per 2 cups of water. So I'm using a total of 8 teaspoons of tea. That's going to be 4 teaspoons of black tea and 4 teaspoons of green tea. And so I just use a tablespoon, because a tablespoon is 3 teaspoons, plus a little extra, which is the extra teaspoon. So that's how I measure it, because I don't like dirtying a lot of extra utensils. But I want to go ahead and measure those into my tea ball. So the tablespoon on one side, the teaspoon on the other. Carefully clip it together, make my tea. Both of them go in the same pot of water. And then we'll see it when it's done steeping. Now in the meantime, I'll fill this 1 gallon jar halfway full with cool or cold water. The reason for that is that after you're done making your sweet tea and you pour it into the scoby, into the gallon jar with the scoby, you don't want to kill the good bacteria in your scoby by having it be too hot, so that's why I like to do it that way. So once the tea is steeped, I get ready to put it in the jar. Now I know I always use this bowl, and I always know that this bowl is messy to use, but I still use it. So I grab my funnel, and I put my funnel in my 1 gallon jar, and I pour it. And I still make a mess. So I give it a stir. I put my fancy little stretchy lid on that I got at a yard sale, and it goes on the counter beside the beet kvass, which I talked about in my video last week, the pickle juice jar, and I also have on this counter my fermented garlic, which is very strong stuff. This has been fermenting for a long time. The garlic is pretty much all just dissolved at this point. And I also have it next to my eggshells that I pulverize, that I save and dry and pulverize for my chickens. And what seems like moments later, it's fermented and it's already gone. Hey, if you're enjoying this or learning something, can you like it down below? Thanks! Now, as a quick update on my beet kvass, I mentioned in the video last week that there are good types of bacteria to look for and there are bad types of bacteria to look for. So you can see on here, I mentioned that the fuzzy white bacteria, that's bad. Now, it's getting pretty warm here, and I was still using a fairly small amount of salt, and that's, I'm sure, why this happened. But again, I just went ahead and skimmed it off, and I still used the beet kvass, and it's under the water, it's still totally fine because it still has the salt in it. But for some reason, there's just more on the top. But then there's kind of a normal bacteria film that's just the white stuff. Now, while I was waiting for my tea to steep, I made my awesome morning powerhouse smoothie, as I like to think of it. So before, I had been making a green smoothie, and so I had been trying to get kale and chard and spinach and all these things in there. But on the Weston Price group, many people, to my surprise, actually said, no, don't do that. Don't do green smoothies. Somebody even said, this is where green smoothies belong, and they had a toilet emoji. And the reason is because they're so high in oxalates, which are really hard for your body to break down. So they recommend, a lot of people recommended only consuming spinach, and especially spinach, cooked. So that was a big shift for me because I had been doing that every morning for a while. And so now what I do is I go ahead and combine some beet kvass, and I put a banana in it. And of course, the bananas are always going to be better if you've got Black Widow on it. I put 2 raw pasture-raised eggs that we raise in it. I also put turmeric and cayenne in there, and that's mainly because of something I saw recently from another Weston Price chapter leader, and it just listed a whole bunch of benefits of turmeric, and so I thought, okay, great, well, I'll put turmeric in it too. And then one of the people who watched the video commented and said, hey, he sent me a message and said, hey, just so you know, if you eat turmeric, you need to eat pepper with it. And so I've been doing that. I've just been putting some in my smoothie because the pepper activates something in the turmeric or enables your body to use it more efficiently. So thanks for your comment on that. And then I also put collagen in it. And sometimes just to try to get as many good things as I can, I put some elderberry syrup in it and some liquid iodine. And I blend it up and it's so delicious. It just puts a smile on my face. Okay, so in conclusion, here's what you need to make kombucha. Oh wait. Right now. Here's what you need to make kombucha. Oh, wait. Here's what you need to make kombucha. 3 times the charm. So you saw here how to make kombucha and why I drink it, an update on the beet kvass, and my powerhouse morning smoothie. Thanks so much for watching. Bye. And I know sometimes like band-aids and stuff can be kind of distracting, so in case you're wondering, I just cut myself a little bit when I was butchering our roosters yesterday, so that was a really nice thing to be able to do. We had raised them up as chicks, and so we're keeping the hens for eggs, and it was time to butcher the boys, and cut my hand. But you'll be able to check out that video next week, so if you're interested in this kind of thing, go ahead and subscribe.